Today on Straight Talk Africa, we discuss the dream of African unity by visionary Ghanaian founding father Kwame Nkrumah and his colleagues. The goal was to end European colonialism on the continent and apartheid in South Africa and create a free and independent African personality. To what extent has that challenge been met? That's coming up next right here on Straight Talk Africa. Hello, welcome to Straight Talk Africa, live from the Voice of America studios here in Washington. It's Wednesday, July 13th. I am Shaka Ssali.
Happy Wednesday, Shaka, and hello to all of our viewers and listeners on the continent and elsewhere. I'm Ayan Bior, your social media reporter.
Today, we'll talk about what political independence has meant to Africa and the African people.
And coming up later in our STA inbox, you, our audience, have weighed in on our topic through your emails and Facebook comments, and we'll reveal some of them ahead on Straight Talk Africa.
The great promise Kwame Nkrumah brought to Ghana and Africa of independence and unity has proven to be elusive and hard to find if you are a citizen of the Democratic Republic of Congo or in South Sudan. My colleague Paul Cisco has more.
All the territories in Africa. Our independence is meaningless unless it is linked up with total liberation of the African continent.
Ghana became the first black-led independent African country on March 6, 1957. Kwame Nkrumah's leadership helped others achieve independence from colonial powers across the continent. Since Congo's independence from Belgium in 1960, the massive, resource-rich nation has known little more than violence, poverty, dictatorial, and poor governance. Congolese President Joseph Kabila has been in power since 2001. He won disputed elections in 2006 and 2011. The government says it is delaying elections for logistical reasons. Opponents and many political observers fear Kabila intends to hold on to power beyond his mandate. Popular opposition candidate and former governor of Katanga, Moise Katumbi.
Population are ready for election, which is important. 99% are ready for the election, and they are waiting for the right time. You don't want to make a putsch. You don't want to make a coup d'etat. You want to follow our constitution. And if they don't call for election, the people of Congo are going to say, Mr. President, you didn't respect what you're supposed to respect. It's time to go. Bye-bye, Mr. President.
Mr. Katumbi and others want the international community to step in and pressure the Congolese government to allow a peaceful transition of power. Turning to South Sudan, where the independence that was celebrated 5 years ago has not brought the peace, unity, or development widely anticipated. Juba is reportedly returning to normal Tuesday after renewed fighting broke out Thursday between the rival forces of President Salva Kiir and First Vice President Riek Machar. Former South Sudanese Deputy Defense Minister Dr. Majid Agut appeared Monday on VOA's Africa 54.
Well, there is still a lot of promise out there for South Sudan. The country is now stuck with these two leaders. They are the main obstacle to the progress and the future of South Sudan. And given the risky behavior and the way they are running the affairs of the nation, it is actually time to call for their departure from power.
United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon is calling for an arms embargo and targeted sanctions on South Sudan, saying the leaders have yet again failed the people and squandered the promise that independence brought. The fighting has claimed hundreds of civilian lives and forced 2.5 million people to flee their homes. Paul Cisco, VOA News, Washington.
Thanks, Paul, for that report. Joining us here in our Washington studios are two distinguished guests. Olivier Kamitatu, Governor's advisor to Moise Katumbi, a former governor of Katanga in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Dr. Majid Agut, former South Sudanese Deputy Defense Minister and a member of the former SPLA detainees. Well, gentlemen, I have to say that I'm profoundly honored and exceedingly humbled to have the opportunity to host you for the first time on Straight Talk Africa.
Thank you, Shaka, for your invitation, for your kind invitation.
You're most welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Shaka.
You're most welcome. Later in the program, we'll give you, the audience, a chance to call and talk with our guests. The number to call is 202-619-3111. The US country code is 1. Let me come to you immediately, Olivier. You heard, of course, about how independence all began with Kwame Nkrumah back in 1957, and there was very, very high hope for Africa. What has independence meant for you particularly?
Independence means a lot of things. First of all, a vision, a dream for the continent, for the whole continent. Not only for Kwame Nkrumah, to Lumumba in Congo, and many, many other high personalities. So we need model, and at that period they got really model for the future of Africa. And it must remain in the memory of what one single young African must have in his mind, that independence means something, means sacrifice, means also a vision, a real vision for the future of the continent, means the integration of the continent. We are one whole continent. All the Africans are equal.
For people like you, who obviously are either holding positions of power or in contention for power, there is something good to say about independence. But what about the very ordinary Congolese, for example? A Congolese, for example, who might be living somewhere in Rushuru.
Yeah, but we are 80 million Congolese today. 65% of the population is less than 20 years old. So it's a very young country. Well, we are very proud to be Congolese. It means something in the heart of all the citizens in my country. We are Congolese. Even if we faced violence, many problems, we remain Congolese. A big country, a huge country in the middle of Africa. We are the heart of Africa, and we are very proud to be Congolese. That's the independence.
So no matter what, you feel that you are much better off, for example, than you were under Belgian colonialism.
We are free today.
You are
Even
free.
if we are facing problems, violence, peace, instability, lack of education, lack of public health, we have many problems, but we are independent. And now we are going to forge our own process for the democratization to get good institution, and it depends on the leadership. We have an opportunity. We are at a crossroads in Congo. We are going to change the leadership, and for sure we will promote a new vision and a new leadership for the Congo. So you have good examples in Africa: Senegal, Ghana, Tanzania, Benin, Cape Verde, many good examples, Tanzania, but also bad practices. Burundi, Rwanda, Congo-Brazzaville, those who are changing their constitution to remain in power, Zimbabwe. Okay, we have to choose now. And it's up to the population. The sovereignty is in the hand of the population.
Majak, what about you? What has independence meant for you particularly?
Well, first of all, for all Africans, the independence was a realization of a great dream, that African people become independent. It was also a rebirth of an African renaissance, and South Sudan being part and parcel of the African continent shared in this dream, even though they were under occupation for too long. Their path and their struggle to achieve independence followed a different trajectory, but it is part of African struggle to achieve independence and be free like the rest of the African people. So for me personally, I feel as a free African. I'm not any longer occupied. You could talk of crisis in my country, but that does not, by any measure, dampen the fact that people of South Sudan are free and they are happy that they are independent and free like other Africans.
When you talk to an ordinary person, for example, in Bor, Jongele State, when you talk to someone in Wau, when you talk to the ordinary South Sudanese displaced person, what do those people say to you, even though, in fact, they have been politically independent for the last 5 years?
Well, a clear sense of betrayal would be expressed, no doubt about that. And it is an unfortunate contagion from the rest of Africa that have taken a negative trajectory of violence, of fighting for power, of corruption, of lack of development, and all those kind of things. So there is a general sense of betrayal in my country, but as I said from the very onset, this does not dampen the very fact that they are happy that they are independent and free.
There are people who would have thought that given the experience that you have had by seeing all these African countries becoming independent, that perhaps you could have actually gone about things differently. Is it possible that you are a reflection of the geographical location where you are? Because when someone looks north, looks at Khartoum, looks east, looks at Addis Ababa, looks south, Kampala, Kinshasa, looks at Central African Republic, someone might probably say, yeah, it probably makes sense, because after all, what's the difference?
Well, there's no denying the fact that we are the last born in the African family, and in a state of taking the competitive advantage of a last born, we got ourselves caught up in the tragedy of a last born, and that's why we are behaving like actually following on the footsteps of many African countries that have squandered a huge opportunity of achieving progress and development for their people. At our independence, we have been debating this, that look, there are two clear models for Africa. There is a narrow path that few African fathers of liberation have chosen to tread. And these countries have been peaceful and stable, countries like Tanzania, countries like Botswana, and a number of few other countries that never witnessed civil war and violence. And on the top of that, good governance and good management of resources. On the other hand, there is an open path that majority of African countries had trodden. And this is the path of corruption, path of dictatorship, path of gerontocracy, path of family dynasties, and a path of no term limits and all these kind of things. So we have been debating this among ourselves, and we said the choices, if this was a multiple choice test, then for South Sudan the answer was clear. Unfortunately, the answer was not clear, and we are where we are. Maybe heredity matters. We have inherited all the bad things of Africa, unfortunately.
Interesting. Olivier, you come from a blessed country, certainly the largest country in terms of landmass south of the Sahara, incredibly wealth in natural resources and what have you, and yet people are incredibly poor. Mm-hmm. How do you explain those contradictions?
This contradiction is linked to the leadership and the governance. If the leadership is dedicated to the development, the result of development for the population, if we take all the benefit of the mineral resources and we invest in human capital, in health, education, in infrastructure, we have to connect Congo, but we have also to integrate Congo to all Africa. We have 9 neighboring countries. We have to seize this opportunity. But in fact, it's not minerals, the wealth of Congo. It's the human capital. We have to invest in agriculture. We have also to feed millions of people. So it's the vision. The problem of the leaders was
available
the
resources.
vision. Yeah, but the resources, after the copper, diamond, coltan, what will remain? Okay, we dig, we create holes in Katanga, in Kasai. After that remains the Congolese themselves. So we have to promote the human capital. We have millions of young people today, and they must be part of the development of Congo. Not be only the witness of the development, but they must act and be part of the development.
Now we'll pause for a short break, and would like to remind you that Straight Talk Africa is now on the social networking website Twitter, and we are tweeting live. Follow us at VOA Shaka. That's VOA Shaka, and join in on today's discussion with your questions and comments. Don't forget to use the hashtag VOA Africa Independence. And we are still on Facebook. Just enter the keyword Straight Talk Africa, become a fan, and connect with other friends of the Voice of America. We'll be right back with you, so please don't go away.
Like Voice of America on Facebook. Follow VOA on Twitter. Join VOA on our YouTube channel. Like, follow, join VOA.
This is Straight Talk Africa on the Voice of America. What is your opinion about today's topic? Call us at 202-619-3111. U.S. country code 1. When you call, remember the following. Ask only one question, keep your comment brief, and turn down the volume on your radio or television. Now let's return to Straight Talk Africa.
Thank you very much, Esther Githiu-Ewart, and welcome back to Straight Talk Africa, coming to you live from Washington. Let me come to you, Majak. Earlier you said in a clip that you are stuck with these two leaders. Haven't you heard a saying that no society gets the leadership that it desires, that rather you get what you deserve?
You get a leadership that you deserve. And the processes that led to the choice of South Sudanese to install these two comrades, these two gentlemen as leaders, was driven by an honest expectation that they were going to deliver, and so they were going to be the leaders that South Sudanese deserve. Mm-hmm. As we talk now, what have they been doing? They have a clear inclination to violence, and this is what I described in one of the shows here as a proclivity to arson. Every time you bring them together, it's war, and therefore South Sudanese do not have any other choice than to call for their departure. Do they have the polls? Do they have the ballot box under the current situation? No. South Sudan is a state under the capture of warlords. Warlords that are not able, have been given more than a chance. The agreement that was signed in Addis was to give them a second chance. Mm-hmm. They have decided not to shape up. And the people are helpless. They do not have a capacity to let them ship out. So this is the catch-22 situation that the people of South Sudan are facing. And taking it back to your initial question, whether they regret being independent, no, there are no decisions regret, because they know the question of bad leaders is something within their management if they are accorded an opportunity to deal with that democratically.
But when you think about it really, again, look at your country. It obviously is a very huge country in terms of land mass. In fact, much larger than the current East African community countries combined. You also have all the resources that anybody can think about, including, of course, oil, minerals, and what have you. I have had the opportunity to overfly your country from Bor to Wau and what have you, and you frankly see the land is still virgin terrain. Nobody has, in fact, cultivated it. Very, very fertile. It could, in fact, become the food or bread basket of the region. When you talk about the population, you have very few people, Majak. Why are you busy killing each other instead of producing more? How do you explain that to the audience, honestly? Someone watching you or listening to you on the radio. What are you fighting for?
That's a wicked problem. That's a wicked problem that so many people will have no answers in South Sudan, including leaders. South Sudanese have got a land that is vast in terms of territory, as you have said. We have the largest wetland in the world, the Sud, with all the biodiversity and wildlife species. And this is in addition to minerals, petroleum, forestry, and everything. And of course, a small population, of course, which is largely illiterate, and this is a challenge of the leaders to develop human capital out of this population and utilize resources correctly. So it's a puzzle that everybody is trying to understand. But as I said, it's not by way of explaining it away. Sometimes I wonder whether this is a contagion, because we were born into an environment that is violence infested. You know that we're part of the Great Lakes, and Great Lakes is in turmoil. We're part of Greater Horn of Africa, and Greater Horn of Africa is in turmoil. We have been at war for 50 years. And even much before, our country is infested with small firearms, and civic education has never taken roots since many decades of war in our country. So you have pile upon pile of young people who have missed opportunities, and there is nothing that they know better than violence. And there are studies to that effect that when a population of young people who have not attended secondary education is big in a country, that country is liable to violence.
What do you say to someone who might tell you that perhaps people like Cherubino Kwanyweni Ball, the man who fired the first shot in 1983 in Bor, what do you think he must be thinking now? What do you think about John Garang?
Well, John Garang, Cherubino Kwanyweni, William Nyon-Bany, Arok Thon Arok, and so many great leaders, William Deng Nial, Father Seterino, many of them, you know, the pioneers of our struggle. If they are back to life, they will stage a war against us. They will stage a fresh war of liberation against us. This is the only thing that they can do.
Olivier, who is your hero? In the Democratic Republic of Congo, or the Congo, or Zaire, or what was once the Belgian Congo? Who is your hero? Who was your hero?
My hero. Well, we need models, example. Well, for sure, for all the Congolese, Lumumba is the hero.
Why do they think Lumumba is their hero? Lumumba was around for only 6 months as Prime Minister, correct?
Because he delivers speech in which every African inspire everybody, not only in Congo, but in the world.
Right.
That's the reason why Lumumba belongs to the world, not to Congo, so it's our hero today.
Patrice Emery Lumumba.
Yeah, Patrice Emery Lumumba, yeah.
Why is it that almost every Congolese who gets the opportunity to be a leader behaves like a Mobutu Sese Seko, a Moise Tshombe?
Well, just like in South Sudan, it's a matter of vision, but also, I think, and I'm sure, also of education. And when you seize the power, you control Congo as your own property, and you forget the population. So now we need new leaders with a new vision. That's the reason why, for example, Moise Katumbi, when I say this example in Katanga province, from scratch, he built an administration. He tried to fight against corruption. Corruption is a real mass killer for the African economy. He tried to eradicate also impunity and to impose transparency. And he dedicated all the resources of the province to the development of the province. He built schools, hospitals, roads, infrastructure. For sure, there are many problems in Katanga. But from nowhere, now Katanga represents one of the example of administration in Congo. Mm-hmm. So we can do that. It depends on the leader, mm-hmm. on the leadership, on the vision.
Well, you talk about your boss, Moise Katumbi.
It's not my boss.
You advise him.
It's not my boss. I'm a member of a political party. I'm a president of a political party, and my platform, the G7, 7 political parties in the majority.
Right.
After having written 3 times, we send letters to President Kabila to say, okay, now we have to respect the Constitution. Say something. Are you going to stay in the presidency for all your life? We have a Constitution. That's a fundamental document because it's the result of a compromise. After 5 years of war, we were totally divided. We enter in negotiations in Sun City. Mm-hmm. We adopt a constitution. 85% of the population voted for this constitution. So today, after 2 terms of mandate, now we want President Kabila to say, okay, I will go, I will respect. It's also my legacy. And that's the reason why we say, first of all, the fundamental is to respect the given word, and constitution must be respected.
You know, there was a saying that Moise Katumbi and President Joseph Kabila used to be very, very close buddies. Is that correct?
They were very close, but it was a contract.
So what happened?
It was a contract.
What was the contract?
Respect the constitution. You have 2 terms. You have 2 terms, 5 years, 5 plus 5. Not one single day. And Moise Katumbi asked Joseph Kabila to respect the Constitution in 2014. Mm-hmm. And in 2016, when we were totally convinced that Kabila will not respect the Constitution, okay, we say no. We cannot suppose the president who does not want to step down after the end of his mandate.
How do you respond to some critics who have said that there was a deal between Moise Katumbi and Joseph Kabila, and the deal was that Moise Katumbi was supposed to play a Putin, Vladimir Putin?
No.
He was supposed to serve 2 terms so that Joseph Kabila can come back to State House Kinshasa. And then,
Moise Katumbi was first.
Joseph shifted the goalposts.
He was a businessman. He did not want to enter in politics.
How did he become governor of Katanga?
Because the majority of the population, and at that period the majority say you are very popular.
What made him popular? Because of his football club?
Not only the football club. I think he's a charismatic leader. Mm-hmm. He can approach everybody. He can go and talk to the youth, to the people. He's very popular. He's charismatic.
We'll come back to that. He looks charismatic. You're tuned into Straight Talk Africa. We'll have more of a discussion in a moment. But first, here is Ian Bior. Take it away, Ian.
Thanks, Shaka. And still to come, we'll reveal some of the fantastic feedback we've received from you, our audience, through social media. But now here's our letter of the week from a Straight Talk Africa Facebook fan who responded to our question of the week.
The letter of the week comes from Patricia Nambi from Uganda, who writes, in the real sense, independence means being free from the control of bigger powers, enjoying social, political, and economic freedom, making independent decisions, having a self-sustaining economy, among others. However, power-hungry leaders have changed the meaning of independence to denial of democracy to people, secessionism, misuse of public funds, change of constitutions for dictators to remain in power, and the oppression of the masses, among others. It seems most African leaders are politically immature and can't understand the meaning of independence.
Today's youth are not just the next generation of African leaders, they are today's leaders. And this is the time to invest in them. Today, not tomorrow. So let's connect. Let's engage with each other on issues that will transform our societies. Innovation, leadership, entrepreneurship, things that you're doing to move the continent forward, to make you the greatest generation that Africa has known. It's Upfront every Wednesday, 17:30 UTC, right here on the Voice of America.
This is Straight Talk Africa on the Voice of America. Call us now with your questions and comments. The number is 202-619-3111 and the U.S. country code is 1. Call us direct and we'll call you right back. Remember to turn down the volume on your radio or television and keep your comments brief. Now back to Straight Talk Africa.
Thank you very much, Esther Gidi-Ewart, and welcome back to Straight Talk Africa, live from Washington. Once again, it's time to bring in my colleague and social media reporter, Ayen. Take it away again, Ayen.
Well, thanks again, Shaka. We received tremendous feedback in our STA inbox to this week's question. Americans celebrated their 240th year of political independence on July 4th. Following the end of apartheid in South Africa in 1994, the entire African continent regained its political independence from European powers. This leads us to our question of the week, which asks, what has independence meant for Africa and the African people? Well, before we begin, I'd like to thank all of you for using all of our social media platforms to communicate with us. And another reminder that we are tweeting live today. Use the hashtag #VOAAfricaIndependence. And if you haven't yet, please do follow us at VOA Shaka. And speaking of it, let's go to a tweet from HS Estro from Tanzania, who tweets, African independence means we are free physically, but mentally and economically, we are depending on Western countries. Now, let's go to another comment from fan Isaac Petro from Singida, Tanzania, who writes, Africa, we can be free if we can own our resources without involving other countries with repressive systems in development contracts. Well, Shaka and guest, some interesting points made. What's your take?
Thank you very much, Majak. What about that?
Well, generally, Africa is trapped not only in conflict, it's trapped in poverty. And Africa is not able to mobilize its vital energies and put together the critical mass for its economic takeoff. What could be the reason? The reason is simple. The answer is simple. It's bad leadership. And as the Christians would like to put it, where there is no vision, people perish. And exactly this is what we see in Africa.
So what happened to the Kwame Nkrumahs of Africa? Nkrumah had a vision, a very clear vision. You saw that he gave a speech when Ghana was regained its political independence. He said the independence of Ghana would be meaningless unless it was linked with the total liberation of Africa. And he did not simply talk the talk, Majak. He actually provided the tools so that, in fact, he walked the talk so that Africa could walk the walk, to the extent that 1994, South Africa became politically independent and the end of apartheid.
For majority of us as young Africans who came to tread the path of our great forefathers like Kwame Nkrumah, the vision was set. All the milestones for the future were visible. They could not be missed. But take it back a little bit. Nkrumah, Patrice Lumumba, and people of his generation.
Mwalimu Nyerere, perhaps, of Tanzania.
And Mwalimu Nyerere, of course. Kaunda, so many of them. So many of them.
Gamara of Deonas?
Yeah. They emerged from the heat of the African liberation. They were made by the circumstances of liberation to purge Africa of colonialism. The rest of it after them became power struggle. And different circumstances, greed and tribalism and all kind of vices were actually the key drivers in creating leaders after them in Africa. And that's why in our case, people like John Garang are different, because John Garang was very clear. He internalized the vision of the forefathers of Africa. He taught many of us Pan-Africanism, and this was the line many of us had thought to follow. But then, leader matters at the end of the day. If you are badly led, the crowd would definitely go for a collective suicide, and this is what's happening in most of the African countries.
Talking, of course, about Dr. General John Garang Mabior, I had the privilege of interacting with him and interviewing him several times. He was a leader indeed. Ayen, do you have more reaction from the audience, please?
As a matter of fact, we do. Let's go to another comment from a Facebook fan, Othin Jeremiah, who writes, independence is one of Africa's biggest illusions when it comes to puppet leaders that are not elected but selected. And our last Facebook comment comes from Golden Atwer from Fort Poto, Uganda. He writes, unless Africans understand what independence means, Africa can never be independent. Until now, Africa could not make its own decisions without its colonial masters. So disgusting, for I say independence in Africa was a waste of time since Africa was not ready for it. Well, Shaka, again, a round of very interesting points made. Your take?
It's all yours, Olivier. Your reaction?
Well, everybody forgot that the world was divided in two blocks in 1960 till the end of the 80s. You were belonging to one bloc or to another.
The Cold War.
Don't forget this, the Cold War. And it was systemic, but you were part of one bloc. In the 90s, well, we learned democracy with national conference. We tried to the multi-partyism. And, well, it was the first step of democracy. You can hesitate. A newborn, you know the first step, quite difficult.
Really?
Now is the second step. Mm-hmm. After elections, we are going to impose really democracy. And I remain optimistic because all what we say, no, it's not a fate for the Africa to be dependent on this and this. No. We can choose our own way with a new leadership. So 50 years, it's nothing in terms of continents.
But what about when you compare, for example, with the Asian countries, which were basically colonized, went through the same circumstances? We're talking about Singapore, we're talking about Malaysia, we're talking about Indonesia. There are so many countries I can talk about.
Precisely good.
In terms of development, practices. Some of them, in fact, were even inferior to countries like Uganda, like Kenya. But today, my friend, the difference is like black and white.
I don't think so. We can be inspired by good practices, and you mentioned it. We are still fragile states. The fragility of the state.
But who makes them fragile?
We have to consolidate peace, to build state, to deliver social services. And then, second step, we are going to progress. We are the fastest economic growing continent in the world. We are the youngest continent in the world. So we have many opportunities. Now we have to seize this and to change the direction.
Well, thanks again for bringing us this week's audience reaction.
It's been a pleasure, and that does it for today's social media segment. Just a reminder that we appreciate all the feedback, whether it's in social media forum or using other means to communicate with us. Please do keep them coming. And if you're a new fan, drop us a line at africatv@voanews.com. Once again, our email address is africatv@voanews.com. Or post your comment on our Facebook page. Enter the keywords Straight Talk Africa. Be sure to visit us online at voaafrica.com, or you can join our YouTube channel. Sign up to VOA TV to Africa and follow us on Twitter at VOA Shaka. A reminder that the show is streaming live every Wednesday. Go to VOA Straight Talk Africa TV program page on our website, or simply watch us live on your mobile device. Just download the VOA mobile app. Now, let's take a look at what's on tap for next week's program.
Next week on Straight Talk Africa, Shaka Ssali and his guest will discuss the Republican National Convention and what a Republican presidency could mean for Africa. That's next week, right here on Straight Talk Africa.
Welcome back, and today we are talking about what political independence has meant to Africa and the African people. Our distinguished guests are Olivier Kamitatu, Governor's advisor to Moise Katumbi, former governor of Katanga in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Dr. Majak Agut, former South Sudanese Deputy Defense Minister and a member of former SPLA detainees. Gentlemen, again, I have to say I'm profoundly honored and exceedingly humbled to have the opportunity to host the two of you on Straight Talk Africa.
It's our opportunity too.
Thank you.
You're most welcome. Now, I come to you, Majak. In 1990, Olivier made a very interesting point. This was a time when there was hope, really, and optimism in as far as democracy is concerned on the continent. You had people like Frederick Chiruba, for example, beating founding President Kenneth Kaunda back in 1991, and Kaunda, in fact, conceding defeat with grace. So you had really peaceful, kind of like handover of the baton. And then, of course, you had a lot of interesting experiences, but then you had the Bill Clinton administration in office here, which came with a phrase that we were looking at a new breed of African democrats, basically, a new breed of African leaders, with the beacons of hope for African democracy. I remember I was at State House Nakasero with then Secretary of State Madeleine Albright. And you still had problems, of course, fighting Khartoum and what have you. I remember she turned around and turned to Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni and said, "You are a beacon of hope for African democracy." I wonder what she meant by that, really, having seen what has been going on in terms of selections instead of elections. And you had, of course, these people identifying leaders right from Eritrea. We're talking about Isaias Afwerki, going to Ethiopia, Meles Zenawi, down to Kampala, Yoweri Museveni, going to Kigali, you could say Paul Kagame, and in fact, at that time, went to Kinshasa, Laurent Desire Kabila. So what happened?
Well, 1990s, the end of Cold War was a break for Africa, and like the beginning of decolonization of Africa, the period post-Cold War came with a lot of promise for the African continent, and the leaders that championed the cause of African transition from Cold War and apartheid in South Africa, the release of Nelson Mandela, the end of apartheid and all that, the end of so many civil wars that kept Africa in a perpetual trajectory of warfare were ended at that point. So there was every reason to be hopeful that Africa was actually embarking on a new journey. Unfortunately, there have been problems of no respect for constitutions, problems of leaders trying to cling to power, problems of dictatorship. War has come back in a full scale in so many parts of Africa. especially in Western Africa and Central and Eastern Africa. So, unfortunately, the beacon, the beacon is getting lost. And this is one of the key messages of this time to African leaders, that the African revival, the African Renaissance is in their hands. It doesn't have to be dictated from without. It has to be generated from within. And the Africans are capable of doing that.
Do you agree with some people who say that in a lot of African countries now, the word really a constitution, frankly, doesn't mean anything, because constitutions have in fact been transformed into what they characterize as personal manifestos, really?
Yeah, because they are not social. If they are not social contracts, then they are. If they are not social contracts, then they are personal manifestos, because personal manifestos are documents that contain declaration of intent of an individual. But constitutions are things that we follow in letter and spirit. And I think what Africa needs at this stage is the generation of new social compact between the leaders and the governed, so that leaders are abided by this contract, by this social contract, and it is it that will determine whether they stay in power or not.
When you think about it, Olivier, now, are Africans really in most of the continent? Can you describe them frankly as citizens? Because to be a citizen, you owe allegiance to a state, in which case you have constitutional rights. You have the right to choose who governs you. But as it were in most African countries, really, people are treated as subjects. Subjects do not have constitutional rights. Subjects basically owe their allegiance to an individual authority. It can be a presidential monarch, it can be a kabaka, it can be an emperor, it can be a dictator who grants you privileges as opposed to rights. How can we work something around that to make sure that Africans, in fact, become, because they deserve to be who they are, the owners of their own territories, citizens?
In my country, in DRC, we adopted the Constitution after a long war. At that period, I was the Speaker of the National Assembly. I drafted the Constitution, and I know perfectly well what was the compromise: to end the war and to build a new democracy, a new political order. And we say to everybody during 2 months before the referendum, this Constitution means peace, a hope for DRC. And 85% of the population, everybody, they vote for the Constitution. And this Constitution is the root, the fundamental of the DRC. So everybody is concerned in Congo by the Constitution. That's the reason why when Joseph Kabila wants to change the Constitution, everybody is opposed. Because this Constitution means peace. We can amend a Constitution, but not to stay in power. We cannot divide the unity of the country for the fate of one individual, of one family.
But he can find a way, because just across the river, the Republic of Congo, Brazzaville,
each country has its
own. They have
own.
negotiated it. You go to Rwanda, what have you seen? Go to Uganda.
Let's go back to your question, the 90s, the models, Isaias Afewerki, Kagame, Museveni. At that period, Western countries were just concerned by result of development, not democracy. After that, we adopted to eradicate poverty MDGs and many other things the next decades. It was another spirit. Now, everybody consider that, first of all, we have to adopt constitution, democracy, institution, strong institution instead of strong personalities. We changed a lot during the 20 last years.
Obama, of course, has talked about the need for strong institutions rather than strong individuals who are in charge, but that seems frankly to be the trend, especially from Cameroon. You go through Equatorial Guinea, you go through the entire Central Africa and East Africa for the most part. A little bit less that way in Southern Africa, a little bit less that way with Nigeria now coming on board in West Africa, and more so in North Africa. Let's go to the lifeline of the show, who are the telephone callers. Let's go to Patrick from Nigeria. Good evening, Patrick. You're most welcome. Straight Talk Africa.
Good evening, Mr. Shaka. Good evening, our guest. Okra for Patrick is my name here in Aruchuku in Nigeria. First of all, Mr. Shaka, I have to I congratulate America to 240 years. You see, Africans, we have benefited a lot from United States of America, health-wise, education, technology. But the question now to our guest is this. Since the beginning of 21st century, going to United States of America to secure a visa, even in Nigeria here, you must pass a tunnel now. But in the 80s, 90s, it was not that way. Why is it so? Looking at the level America has reached at 240 years, but now coming days to America, because in those days, you sit down in your house, you just go down, you move everything moving fine. But now to get a visa is a problem. Thank you very much, Happy President, and congratulations to America, and even the incoming government, I congratulate all of them in the process.
Thank you very much. Let's go to the other side of the continent. Good evening, John from Tanzania. You're most welcome to Straight Talk Africa.
Thank you so much. My name is John Jackson. The guest out there who is person that can call him like an example for people that they have to rent. I can say, to me, my hero could be Mr. Nyerere. You know, the Red Nyerere was a great leader that almost of people who are in the government right now, they have to look for him as a mirror, you know. He get out of his leadership at the time that people needed to stay in the leadership. And now we're talking about like person like Seven, all the way from Uganda. He's remaining on in the leadership, and for the good thing that he didn't even do even a single thing. You know, he can't do even a single thing, but he's still making there by power, by force, which we don't like that. You know, so in this generation, if you keep doing that, they can't do the revolution will say no. And
Thank you. I'm afraid it's very difficult, frankly, to quite understand what he's saying, especially given the manner in which the sound or the voice is actually panning out. What did you hear that you could respond to?
Generally, if I may take the last caller, his focus was on the role model, was on the role models.
Yes.
And the role of the African first leaders.
Yes.
And the good example that they set.
Yes.
I couldn't agree more with what he said, because basically our biggest problem, our biggest challenge is leadership. And one of the Kenyan professors, Lumumba, put it in a very eloquent way that we hang small thieves and we elect big thieves.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
In fact, with a few exceptions, a greater number of them were not greedy, really.
Yeah, they were
not greedy. Nkrumah, for example, when he was overthrown in 1966, he had no house. His family could not get anywhere to live. It was, I think it was Colonel Chimpong late, in fact, who organized. I was told by the family.
Yeah.
People like Kenneth
his family actually,
when he lost the election, he had no house. It was not really a priority. Greed has become a major issue. You talked about your man, Moise Shombe. You talked about Moise Katumbi, not Shombe. Moise, of course, means Moses. Is that meant to be a man who can deliver his people? Or a man who can simply look at the promised land and Joshua comes and delivers the people?
I can say both. We have also to indicate the right way. Hope without hope, it's impossible to build the society. But also you have to deliver results. Hope is not enough.
Good.
And if the experience and result of development can bring hope, that's the reason why Moise Katumbi is so popular in DRC.
So popular in DRC. Especially, of course, with TP, Mazembe Football Club, the almighty Mazembe Football Club. I think it has really made him very popular. He has done a very good job with it. And what about the tracks? He owns a lot of tracks, I gather. We're talking about, is it Muzuri Sana, Habari Kani, something like that, that provides a lot of jobs, I gather.
Yeah, but Moise Katumbi, he was very clear. He proposed to organize a round table and to say, well, you are rich, your credit account, bank account is coming from when, where.
Tell us, in fact, how did he become rich?
We must be transparent.
He's a man of deep pockets. He has a reputation for deep pockets.
He was businessman before entering in politics. So everybody knows
he was a
what
rich
he
man.
Was doing before
Not his
politics.
brothers? Katebe Katoto?
Both.
Where did they get the money from, really? Fish?
Not only fish. I think Jacquemine was the state-owned company in the mining sector, based in Lubumbashi. They got contracts, but before entering in politics. It's a big family in Katanga, well-known family. The father was rich.
Can you take me there to see the place one of these days?
Yes, no problem. Everybody knows that.
I'd love to, so that I can do some very good reporting.
Moise Katumbi was a businessman before becoming a politician.
Tell me, what is it that you think he has been able to accomplish at the province level in Katanga that frankly makes him the type of guy who can replicate that across the nation so that he can in fact become perhaps the best man for the job in Kinshasa?
For the Congolese, no hesitation at all. He has the leadership, he has the experience, he has the results. And the main indicator is his popularity. After 10 years of governor, he's still popular. It's quite...
Again, what makes him popular? The charisma? Or he delivers?
Both. And not only TP Mazembe. You mentioned TP Mazembe, but there are many other clubs in Congo. So it means that when you are supporting another football club, but you're in the same time supporting Moise Katumbi, so it's not only TP Mazembe.
Bring him here so that he can make his case to be the next number one family.
He will come.
In Kinshasa. Yeah. On that note, thanks to our distinguished guests, Olivier Kamitatu, Governor's advisor to Moise Katumbi, former governor of Katanga in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Dr. Majak Agut, former South Sudanese Deputy Minister of Defense and a member of the former SPLA detainees. Thanks to our affiliate stations, along with our viewers and listeners, we thank you for tuning in. For many of our Voice of America radio affiliates, Learning English is coming up next. And tomorrow morning, it's Daybreak Africa with James Bate. On behalf of the Voice of America, thanks for tuning in to Straight Talk Africa. In the meantime, get better, not bitter Africa. And please remember to keep the African hopes alive.